18 days ago, Oliver Dowden said Boris Johnson has demonstrated real leadership in getting the big calls right as PM. Brexit, vaccines, reopening and Ukraine. This morning he resigned, saying our supporters are distressed and disappointed by recent events and I share their feelings. So when do you think he was lying? I don't know that that's a question for a phone-in, but it's certainly one for the ages, isn't it? As presumably other senior Conservative politicians will at some point follow suit when they decide that their own career will be better served by resigning rather than by bending the knee to the only law-breaking liar ever to inhabit 10 Downing, or convicted law-breaking liar ever to have inhabited 10 Downing Street. 25 minutes to 11 is the time. Let me just run through those things as well. Interesting that Brexit's popped up with both of our early callers, one of whom was canvassing in Honiton and Tiverton. But the idea, as I told you for some time, it has to break eventually because Brexit was built entirely on lies and Boris Johnson's premiership was built entirely on Brexit. Eventually, what is a strength, i.e. the way he became the personal embodiment of the Brexit vote, will become a weakness because the Brexit vote was built on lies, as now we are seeing. I don't think you can separate the two. I don't think you ever could. So when Oliver Dowden talks about Brexit, vaccines, reopening in Ukraine, he's talking about a Brexit that hasn't been done, that is currently seeing the UK government contemplating the breaking of international law. And perhaps crucially, the Brexit that apparently Boris Johnson got right is one that even people who voted for it are turning against in their droves. So there's something mad about a country where a senior politician is defending a prime minister on the grounds that he got something done that A, he didn't get done, and B, the people who thought they wanted it have been increasingly persuaded by reality that they don't want it. The second one is vaccines. Now, I think there is a very, very strong case for arguing that a pro-EU government, for example, one led by David Cameron, would not have gone it alone on vaccine procurement, would not have appointed Kate Bingham to go out with a blank checkbook and buy up as many vaccines as she humanly could. That was a clever appointment. And I don't think that a pro-EU government would have done it. But there's two things to remember about this, because it's almost as bogus as Brexit when it comes to reasons to support Boris Johnson. Point number one is that there was absolutely nothing to stop us going it alone while we were EU members. So, you know, it's a counterfactual, of course, because we had an anti-EU government, but a pro-EU government, a member state, could have gone it alone. Actually, there are three things to remember about the vaccine nonsense on this. That's point one, that the EU membership would not have prevented us from pursuing an independent course. So claims that they are dependent upon each other, claims that the vaccine rollout was dependent upon Brexit, that's a lie. However, because I'm honest and they're not, and you must never come down to their level, I do believe that a pro-EU government probably would have gone in with the Europe-wide scheme, which leads us to point two, which is that we're not in the lead anymore. The Europe-wide scheme caught up with us incredibly quickly, and in the case of several countries, has actually overtaken us and remains ahead of us. So they're boasting about leading something that they're not currently leading, which is bonkers. Again, just as supporting a prime minister for getting Brexit done when A, he hasn't got Brexit done, and B, people who thought they wanted it no longer do, it's just as bonkers, really, as claiming leadership in a vaccine race that we are not currently leading. And we haven't been leading it for a very long time. Point three, of course, is that if you want to put Kate Bingham on the table, if this were a game of cards and you play Kate Bingham, people who are a little bit more clear-eyed and honest about Boris Johnson's tenure in Downing Street would simply play the Dido Harding card and they cancel each other out. So he hired the wife of one crony to do one job, and she turned out to do it rather well. And then he hired the wife of another crony to do another job, and she was an unmitigated disaster. So that means we're evens. That's equal. That's zero. You can't mention Kate Bingham without mentioning Dido Harding. Reopening, that's just a meaningless phrase. I mean, again, we're not in the lead anymore. I've been visiting other European countries recently. There's nowhere in the world that sits there thinking, oh gosh, I wish we'd reopened as quickly as the UK. That's just nonsense, but it plays well with people who don't like thinking. And finally, Ukraine, which I think is the most insidious of all, because first of all, Poland has done more than any other country in Europe to support Ukraine, not the UK, but we have done more with regards to weapons supply than comparable allies, and countries like Germany are really shaming themselves and their population in the race to arm Zelensky. They're doing it for one very obvious reason. They're a hell of a lot more dependent upon Russian gas than we are. I think our take-up is about 5%. So there is absolutely, with the exception of the last Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, I don't think there's a politician in Britain who would have behaved differently with regard to Ukraine than Boris Johnson has done. There just isn't. Whoever was in the Prime Minister's office at the moment, whether it was Liz Truss, Ben Wallace, Keir Starmer or Diana... Well, no, not Diana. All right, apart from Jeremy Corbyn and his closest allies, no politician in Britain would have behaved any differently from how Boris Johnson has with regard to Ukraine. And that's just on weapons. The refugee scheme is a national shame. They're facing homelessness now, many Ukrainians who came over here, without a word of support or a scintilla of effort from the government. So those are your four big calls, according to Oliver Dowden 18 days ago. He resigned this morning, 18 days ago. Brexit, vaccines, reopening Ukraine. Hogwash, cobblers, nonsense and rubbish. Those are the four reasons to support Boris Johnson. Something's happened in 18 days to lead Oliver Dowden to this conclusion. Our supporters are distressed and disappointed by recent events, and I share their feelings. 18 days ago, he's demonstrated real leadership in getting the big calls right as PM, Brexit, vaccines, reopening, and Ukraine. Absolute nonsense, as I've just demonstrated to you. Every single one of those claims isn't worth the paper that it's printed on. But that's what you're going to hear increasingly. That's what you've already heard from client journalists and capped-offing Tory MPs. He did not. And let's not forget that his handling of COVID left thousands of people dead who would still be alive today if he'd locked down earlier and listened to the advice that the experts were giving him. Which brings us back to Brexit and Michael Gove's infamous instruction that we should stop, or that we had all had enough of Brexit.